everybody. Good evening and welcome. Glad you all could join us. We're expecting a few more to join in, and we'll give them they can fold in as they wish. So welcome. I'm Patrick O'Connell, the current president of the Alumni Foundation, and we're glad that you all are joining us. This is the first time we've done an event like this, so it's exciting for us. And I want to start by thanking our event producers. You see them there, David and Amy. Amy Langer and David Schwartz are in New York, and they're the ones that put all this together. And we're very grateful for all that work that they do for the foundation. And I also, of course, want to thank our participants, of course, our moderator, Leah Linski, class of 03, and our chef, LC Harrell, who's there, as you can see. LC is in his kitchen, ready to wow us. And of course, Louis Jeroslow, who is our wine expert and currently runs Elkin Creek Winery in North Carolina. Excited to hear about his journey. And we're just glad, Louis, that you're able to join us too. So, the New World School of the Arts Alumni Foundation is an independent 501c3 organization run entirely by alums. We are not really a part of the school, but obviously we do connect with the school and help them. They help us. So a really nice relationship there. And I want to mention a couple of great things that are happening and about to happen with the foundation. So for the first time ever, we are awarding 2 scholarships to graduating New World High School seniors. This is through a generous gift from local hospitality restaurateur extraordinaire David Grutman, and he has pledged $5,000 to our foundation for the next 10 years so that we can offer scholarships to deserving high school seniors. So this is the first time we're doing that. We're having a luncheon in about 2 weeks with David. Randall Emmett's going to fly in. He was instrumental in getting these scholarships put together, so we're excited. So Karis Knoll and Valeria Barrio Barro are the first 2 awardees, and they will be receiving their check shortly. We're also about to start adjudicating the Inspiration Grant number 7 that is in honor of Carmen Ledesma, and that's a $2,500 grant that will be awarded to a deserving alum for one of their projects. This application period is closing on the 15th of April, and we're expecting several applicants, and we'll be awarding that sometime later, probably in May. So lots happening. We will be having one more event in May that will be led by, I think, everybody's favorite teacher, Arlene Prieto, which will be a program about mental health and resiliency. So we're excited about that. A few quick housekeeping things. We're recording the event so that we can replay it for everybody. And please keep your microphones off as much as possible to keep the background noise down. You can change to speaker view if you want optimal viewing. And of course, use the chat as much as you want to chat with your fellow alums. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Leah Linski. Leah's class of 03, worked in the food and beverage industry for nearly 20 years at high-end restaurants across the globe. A lover of great food and delicious wine, Leah cut her teeth working for Daniel Boulud. He is amazing in his restaurant company, Dinex, for over 7 years. She's currently the dining room manager of The Barn at Blackberry Farm, a James Beard award-winning restaurant at a Relayan Chateau Resort in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And Leah, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to you. So thank you all.
Hey, thanks, Patrick, and hi, everybody. Fellow fighting pigeons. Welcome to our Bites and Bottles event. I'm Leah, as Patrick mentioned, and I'm here with Chef LC and Louis, a winemaker from Elkin Winery, and we're super excited to be here tonight. We understand that we're doing something a little different than past alumni events this evening. Since we're branching out from topics that are particular to performing or visual arts, like, we studied at New World, but we hope that everyone can relate to what we are doing tonight, which is cooking delicious food and drinking fabulous wine. Also, there's a lot of similarities, I think, that we'll find as we're talking between food and beverage and the arts. There's obviously a visual component, there's a lot of craft components. passion and production also are a big part of the food and beverage industry. So we're super excited to be here. I was going to start just by introducing Chef LC Harrell, who is a fellow Miamian here. He's been cooking since he was about 6. His first teacher was his grandma, so there's a real passion there. He has a love of cooking ever since then. He studied his BFA actually in theater at SUNY Purchase in New York, but then decided to follow his true passion, which was cooking at the Culinary Institute of America, as we all know. Quite a big deal there. And since then, he's worked for some of New York's finest chefs. You will recognize Stephen Starr, of course, George Vacheron, David Chang, and he's currently the senior sous chef at CxRA, which is a custom caterer, devoted to creating really extraordinary events. So, Chef, we're super excited to have you. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, and I'm so excited to be here. I hope everyone can hear me. You guys are in my ear this way.
Great.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I think we're going to have some fun tonight, and so let's do it.
Awesome. And then we've also got Louis Jeroslow with us, who has a great story here, just amazing. He's currently the winemaker and vineyard manager, part owner at Elkin Creek Winery, or Vineyard, which is in North Carolina in the Yadkin Valley. He spent 22 years in the entertainment business before that, particularly with the Blue Man Group, which hopefully we'll get to hear some fun stories about later. But began his winemaking path as a home winemaker, which is just incredible to me. He'd always enjoyed the wine appreciation in different styles and varieties and regions, and then decided to get the formal training from UC Davis Extension Enology program, and then became caretakers in 2011 of Elkin Creek Winery. They've won multiple awards, 3 double golds, 12 golds, 18 silvers, and 21 bronze medals for their wines from North Carolina, which is incredible. Louis, congratulations. Great to be here with you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to see all these faces.
Yeah, lots of old friends here. And funny enough, we found out that LC, Louis, and we're all theater majors at New World School of the Arts, so Amy included. So we'll have to talk a little bit about the similarities between, theater and food and beverage, which I always think is fun. So I don't know how everybody else is feeling, but I'm pretty anxious to get started here. Chef, do you want to tell us what's on the menu tonight?
Yes. So we're going to start with a spring fling salad. I've chosen all ingredients that are predominantly spring ingredients that are at their best at springtime. Asparagus, fennel, orange. All these things are high peak right now. So we're going to start out with a spring fling salad, like I said. We will start first. Should we just get to cooking? Do you want to take some wine first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Do we want?
Pour some wine. Yeah.
Let's get a salad started first, and then we'll get into some wine.
All right, cool. So I'm going to start first by taking my asparagus. Great spring item. They're like I said before, they're at their peak right now. This is going to be a raw application. We're not going to cook them or blanch them or do anything to them. We're going to shave them. We're going to use our peeler, this guy right here, and we're going to just go across and peel off strips of asparagus. I don't know if you can see them. Pretty nice and thin, right? So we're just going to keep doing that. You're not going to be able to use the entire asparagus, so you can save that guy for later. And maybe the people who are doing the cauliflower steak, whatever you have from the ends of the steak, you can use those to make like stir fry or roast vegetables or something like that. So I'm just going to keep peeling a couple of these asparagus on both sides.
Now,
and
Chef,
then what I'm going to do with this.
Did you trim off any of the edges of your asparagus, or do you not have to do that since you peeled?
No. Well, because I did trim them because I still want to keep this and use it later. So
okay.
I'm not going to throw this in the garbage. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to use it for something else. So I did trim off the edges. I washed everything. Number one, always wash all of your vegetables because they are using all kinds of stuff these days on our vegetables. So make sure they're nice and washed. We're going to continue peeling asparagus. And then I'm going to marinate them with just a little bit of champagne vinegar and some olive oil. And what that's going to do is just break it down. And it's like ceviche, like you would use an acid to kind of break down everything so that it tenderizes itself and it becomes more flavorful. So I'm going to continue to do that. I think I might have enough. All right, so I've got my shaved asparagus. I'm going to do one more. And if you can find the jumbo for something like this, because they're all sizes of asparagus. You've got your pencil ones, you've got the large stalks that are a little about this size, and then you've got your jumbos that are really big. So for something like this, a jumbo would be great because then you have more surface area to peel and it's easier.
Sure.
I'm going to keep peeling this guy. All right, so I think I got enough here. Put them over here. Get my bowl. Put some asparagus inside the bowl. Put a little bit of champagne vinegar, probably I would say a tablespoon. Some salt. A little black pepper. And a little bit of good olive oil. EVOO here, Rachel Ray. And then just let that guy let him marinate a little bit. And then while that's happening, I'll start with the rest of the salad. I just want him to have a little time to marinate. The next ingredient we're going to use some watermelon radishes. That's what this guy looks like. It's very pretty on the inside. Got my board here a little bit. How many people have used watermelon radish for eating? Anybody?
Yeah, watermelon radishes are great. They tend to be a little bit more mild too.
Yeah, I like them because they're pretty. They taste good.
Yeah.
I'm just going to peel the outside all around. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to use my mandolin. I don't know if I added this equipment to a little bit late. If you have a mandolin, this is a Japanese mandolin, and this is the guy that you want. It is super effective, but as effective as it is dangerous. So get yourself one, but be super careful with it. When you want to make things nice and thin, really beautiful, this guy is really good.
Yeah, I appreciate the warning there, Chef. I've had my own run-ins with those things before.
Oh, man. This thing is the most dangerous thing in the kitchen. So I'm going to take them, and I'm just going to run. If you don't have one of these, you can simply just use your knife, cut it in half, and then just go very thin slices. But this is best. Look at that. And anybody, I hope that's right then. And then a restaurant trick would be after you slice something like this, or a carrot, or something crunchy, a radish, a carrot, any kind of root vegetable, you plunge it into cold water, ice water, and what that does is it crisps it up. It brings the whole thing and it tends to make a nice design because all the edges will curl up a little bit, and it looks really great. I'm going to throw this in here. I'm going to get some water.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good trick, especially if you're like preparing a crudité platter or something for a party that you're doing later in the evening, but you want your vegetables to stay super crisp. Like Chef said, you can just put them in containers of water, and that way when you're ready to put it on the platter, they're great, good to go.
Well, dry them off. Through a paper towel. All right, our next ingredient is going to be Persian cucumber, this guy right here. I like Persian cucumbers because the skin is very, very tender. I don't know those guys you see at Publix or somewhere, or where they're like 3 for $2. They're really the thick skin ones that you have to peel sometimes. These guys and the hothouse cucumbers are my favorite because you can just eat the entire thing. Skin is super thin, nice and sweet. Just gonna take this off, and once again use my mandolin.
And the other great thing about those cucumbers, Chef, is that you don't have to peel them, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point. Is you can eat the entire thing. The skin is nice and thin and not bitter. The other cucumbers, the English one is pretty mild as well. The one that's in plastic. But the other cucumbers that you see in the store, this is kind of piled up on itself. Super bitter. I normally, if I have to eat those, I'll peel the skin off.
Right.
And take the seeds out because they have a lot of seeds. This guy has hardly any seeds. So now I've got that. I've got my nice round cucumber, super small. And whatever I don't use, and then my next ingredient is, actually I'll let that sit and we'll make the salad dressing.
Ooh. So, Chef, the marinade that you put the asparagus in, that's not part of the dressing, then?
No, that is just to give the asparagus, to tenderize the asparagus, number one, because they're not cooked, and just to give them some flavor, take out a little bit of bitterness. So I'm going to make the dressing now. Rule for dressing normally is 3 to 1. So that would be, or 1 to 3, or 1 part and 3 parts. 1 part acid, and that can be juice or vinegar or whatever acidic thing that you want to use for your salad. If you're making a lemon vinaigrette, and that would be 1 part lemon juice to 3 parts of whatever fat you're using. That's olive oil, canola oil, what have you. Okay, so that's the normal rule of thumb, 3 to 1. So I've got my champagne vinegar I'm going to use here. And I always use a little bit of sweetener, whether it be sugar or honey. Today I'm using agave. Then I've got my olive oil. And I'm going to put in some mustard. Mustard has lecithin in it, which is an emulsifier, and that will keep your dressing from splitting. So whenever you don't want, they say oil and water doesn't mix, you need the mustard there or something with lecithin to keep it together. It binds it. So a little bit of mustard.
And what type of mustard, Chef? Just Dijon, or?
I'm using Dijon today.
Okay.
A little white wine Dijon mustard. You could use any kind of mustard. It should be fine. A little black pepper. And strawberries, springtime color, sweetness. And then I got over here some chia seeds. Now, chia seeds are really good for you. They have tons and tons and tons of fiber. I like it because for a salad, like it's springtime now, we're all trying to eat a little bit lighter. What this does, chia has the ability to go inside you and kind of absorb water, giving you that sense of being full. So I like to use it in salad dressing. So while you're eating the dressing, you feel like you're getting something a bit more substantial from the chia seeds. A few of those guys in. And I've actually put, this is about 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. And I put in, this is a cup of water. So if you can see how much it's gelled up there, I let it bloom, we call. I'm going to just put 2 teaspoons inside the dressing. And then pray that my blender is working. Which it is. Blend all that up. And it's a nice color. This would be nice if you're doing a lunch. You can bring out the dressing on the side. It's a nice, beautiful color. Everybody could see it, and then you could toss your salad at the table. It's got all these interesting. You've got your chia seeds in there, and you've got the beautiful red of the strawberry outside on the veranda with a nice salad for lunch. All right, so this guy.
Gosh, that's beautiful.
And put it in here. And then, as chefs, we must always taste everything.
Great.
pretty good.
All right,
All right.
Chef, will you go through the ingredients for the dressing one more time?
The ingredients for the...
Yeah, some fighting pigeons who are asking us to do it one more time with them.
Okay, so we've got champagne vinegar, we've got olive oil, agave, Dijon mustard, chia seeds that have been bloomed in water for about an hour, and strawberries, salt, and pepper. That's it.
Now, Chef, can you put the chia seeds in it without blooming them in water first, or do you really recommend that?
Of course. No, I recommend because it just blends in easier. But you can absolutely put them in the dressing without blooming them. They'll bloom themselves, like in the dressing.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me get my arugula and mix the salad. Be right back.
Let's do it. Yeah, chia seeds are a really popular ingredient now. I also think that they have, some nutritional benefits to them as well. It's a great thing to add to a salad, to kind of get a little extra nutrients there and something different.
They are a little bit crunchy, so that's why I like to bloom them, because they can have an off-putting texture if you don't bloom them. I like them in granola bars. Like if I'm doing a granola bar, I put some chia in there because everything's crunchy, so you're not really off by the texture.
Right.
All right.
And other things that you would use chia seeds for, like what else do you recommend, Chef?
My favorite thing to use chia seeds for is chia pudding. It's for breakfast. It's the go-to. So chia seeds. Coconut milk, a little agave or brown sugar. Chia is, I want to say 1 to about 8. So you could do 1 tablespoon of chia seeds in like 8 tablespoons of water or broth or whatever you're using to get the texture that you want. Coconut milk, a little cinnamon, some agave, let it bloom, vanilla. It's going to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours to bloom inside the coconut milk, and then just eat it with strawberries or mango or any type of fresh fruit that you like, some granola. Like I said before, it gives you that sense of being super satisfied. So yeah, it's my favorite thing to use chia for.
Yeah, I love chia pudding too because you can make it the night before. And
exactly.
Put it like in a mason jar and leave it in the fridge. So It's kind of a grab and go breakfast.
Exactly. And smoothies as well. Really, really good in a smoothie.
True.
Okay. Now the one thing that I did make that I didn't make here because it was just a little time consuming. All the people that got the shopping list, they have pecans or pecans, depending on how you say it, and corn syrup. So what I did was with the ingredients that you guys have, it is super easy. I just mixed the pecans with the corn syrup. You'll see here little shards of pecan clusters. This is going to give us a little bit of texture for our salad. Tonight, if you're trying to eat it right now, just chop up your pecans and put it into the salad. It'll still be delicious, but this takes it over the edge. So you're going to take that corn syrup, mix it with the pecans, and just kind of like take your hands and just drop it. Drop it on your sheet tray. Sprayed with some ham or some nonstick spray. So if you have parchment paper, even better. And 250 degrees for 20 minutes. And you'll have these beautiful shards of pecan clusters. And you can just break them up. You can use this in granola. You can use this as a snack. It's like a praline almost.
I would eat it right off the tray.
And I have. So I'm going to plate this salad, I'm going to take a handful of arugula, sorry. I'm going to take my Persian cucumber, mix that in, take my radish. Now, if you get watermelon radish, these are kind of on the small side. But you'll sometimes find them, they'll be huge. They'll be like the size of an orange. So in that case, you might want to just take them and trim them up or cut them in half. You can cut them in half this way, or you can julienne them, meaning cutting them into strips. But I'm just going to cut them in half for this application.
And
once
Chef,
again.
why did you choose arugula instead of a different green for this particular salad?
Because I like the bitterness of arugula, and it's also another ingredient that is super at its peak right now. Spring arugula it's like right now. This is baby arugula, but you'll find that when you see the regular full-grown arugula right now, it's at its peak right now. So this is the best time to buy it if you're going to have arugula.
Awesome.
All right, a few more pieces of radish. Mix this guy up. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of our dressing. And you could actually, for this salad, you can make the dressing a hair sweeter than you might normally because of the bitterness of the arugula. It'll just balance it out. Another reason for the pecan clusters because the arugula can take all of the sweetness.
Mm.
Toss. Restaurants, you want to use tongs? You can use tongs, but this is how we do it. That guy's a little wet. I'm gonna add a little bit more arugula. All right. Now I'm gonna get my plate. I've got a nice white bowl here. And I like serving green salads on white bowls. My partner Bill would disagree. He wants color and everything. I think there's nothing better than a nice white bowl. So you want to pile up. When you're presenting a salad, you always want to pile it up high. You don't want it to, you want it nice and high. And after that, I'm going to add some of my radish just around. I'm going to take my marinated arugula, asparagus. I'm going to put him right on top.
Oh yeah, that looks nice.
And then after that, I'm going to take my shards of pecan clusters.
Now, Chef, you said to make those pecan clusters at 250 in the oven. How long, though, did you bake them for?
20 minutes.
Only? Oh, wow. Cool.
20 minutes. They're going to still appear to be wet when you take them off, but they will dry to a nice crisp. So they won't, it's kind of like when you're making a custard. It's just when you're making a custard, how they tell you to make sure that it's still jiggly.
Mm-hmm.
It should just be slightly jiggly, not like if it's solid, then it's absolutely overcooked. Same thing with these guys. So they should still appear to have some like wetness around them, but they'll crisp up.
And could you do that with other nuts too, if you were working on a different flavor profile?
Absolutely, absolutely. Almonds, walnuts. You can do one of my other favorite things is to do. I call it a seed crumble. I'll take all kinds of seeds, whether that be sunflower, pumpkin, chia again. Sunflower, pumpkin, chia, flax, and I'll do the same exact thing. I'll put them with the corn syrup, bake them off, and you've got like this great like textured thing. All right, guys, first course.
Cool. Can you show it to us? Can you bring it closer? Yeah, look at that. Woo!
Can you see it? There we go.
Oh, that's perfect. That looks delicious,
Good,
Chef.
All right, there we go.
Thanks.
First course, spring salad.
Well, now that we have a salad, I mean, we need something to pair with it. So I see that some people have already started here. We've already got our wine bottles cracked open. But Louis, do you want to tell us a little bit about Elkin Creek and kind of what sort of wines you produce there and what it's like growing wine in North Carolina? Which can be a little bit different.
Speaking of marinating vegetables, so North Carolina, when we were first making the move here, there were a lot of people who gave us a very puzzled look and were very confused about, wait, you're moving to North Carolina to buy a vineyard? In North Carolina, a vineyard in North Carolina, and there's just a lot of puzzlement. And in fact, we had a bit of, we had a head start in comprehending the potential of the region that we were moving into. It's the Yadkin Valley wine region has been established since February of 2003. And it's a federally approved American viticulture area, just like Napa and Sonoma and Finger Lakes and Charlottesville, right here in the foothills of North Carolina. But it seems a bit out of place until you understand the history and the geology. But the French explorers back in the 1520s were first landing in areas like Hatteras and the Cape Fear River Valley, and they discovered native wine grapes growing everywhere rampantly, and wrote back to France talking about that. Sir Walter Raleigh's explorers later also wrote back to England about the same thing. So in fact, North Carolina, or the colony of Carolina, was the original wine region of the United States back to the colonies. And this is really a rebirth of the winemaking here. And we can talk a bit more about the specific aspects of the AVA and how it relates really more directly to Old World Europe rather than any other analog in North America.
Well, why don't we crack into the Viognier, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that, since we normally think of Viognier, or at least I do, as coming from France or the Rhone Valley.
So what's really exciting about the Yadkin Valley, getting back to your question, is we at our vineyard specifically, we grow Italian and French varieties. Other vineyards here in the area, and there's about 53 wineries in a 25-minute radius of us right now, and more vineyards than that don't have wineries. They just grow fruit. But but there's 50 something and growing. Actually, 4 more wineries opened during COVID because they were already in construction and they couldn't just stop. They were in the middle of so toward the tail end of when we were established safe protocols and how we could serve people mostly outdoor seating. And we had several more wineries that their tasting rooms are already under construction, had opened during this last year. But the varieties that we grow here are Italian, French, German, Spanish, Portuguese. People are really experimenting with what types of grapes do well. And frankly, more accurately, how many don't. There's only just a handful of grapes that we have difficulty growing here, mostly because of the climate, and that the things with thin skin like Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris is a little tricky. Zinfandel, in fact, is a thin-skinned grape and has difficulty with the humidity. But frankly, many other things do really well. So back to this Viognier. Viognier is from the Rhone, France, and typically in most examples are grown in further northern latitudes and higher elevations toward the north of that region in France. Nice sound effect with the pouring. That's really good. And that our region, because of its climate, is much more in a southern style of Rhone, like down toward Côte-Rôtie, and some things further south in that region. There's southwestern facing slopes, and they get much more ripe, a bit more fruit forward, luscious, full bodied. So this wine I would describe particularly as a southern style Viognier, meaning that it has a bit more. You still get the white flowers on the nose, and like honeysuckle, but particularly that vibrant acidity in the background. You get tree fruit quality come through, like peach and apricot, where in a northern style it's a bit more forward with the acidity and the floral fragrances. It doesn't have quite that luscious mouthfeel and the viscosity and weight that this particular wine would have. And I think with Chef's dish, things like the way that this wine plays with the oil bases of things like the dressing and the marinade, but also that nice spice of the arugula, and this wine having so much of a fruit character that comes through, really plays with and kind of cuts the oils and the fats of the dressing. It makes a very refreshing, like palate cleanser in between bites. And but it's also Chef also mentioned something about enjoying the meal on the veranda, and you can enjoy this wine nice and chilled on the veranda as well with your meal.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was tasting the Viognier, that different than what you would expect that a lot of those tree fruit characteristics come through, and that it does have that ripeness to it. And I think, you know, kind of perfect with Chef talking about, you know, all the produce at its peak, you know, that ripeness, that spring feeling, and thinking about those ripe strawberries. I think that the wine works great with the dish, certainly.
Yeah, very ripe flavors. And this is, we also feature some other white varieties here, particularly a Chardonnay, but I make the Chardonnay in a Chablis style. So it's very, it's not oak aged or treated with oak at all. It has no oak contact. It's stainless steel only, but I work very hard to preserve a lot of the fruit character. And Chardonnay grape especially is something more like citrus, lime zest, and hints of green apple, Granny Smith apple on the finish, which is the malic acid of the grape, which is preserved by not converting it to that butter, the buttery flavor quality, which is a malolactic conversion. It's a different step of fermentation that we do with the reds in barrel, but it converts that malic acid, which tastes like Granny Smith apple, into lactic acid and something else called diacetyl acid, which tastes like butter. And it completely changes the flavor. So that leaves our Chardonnay extremely vibrant. It's very popular for that reason. And then there's another grape that we make, which is a native to North America. It's a Vitis labrusca species. The grape's called Niagara. And Niagara grape is extremely fruity and floral, just leaps out of the glass, but it has a really nice acidity, a really strong backbone that you have to mitigate, you have to moderate that in the vineyard. We actually harvest that grape early on purpose, so it can become sort of like Viognier. If it becomes overripe, it gets a bit petrol, and you get some fusel kind of quality, a bit like of an oily finish. So we harvest that on the early side to keep the vibrancy. But then I make that particular wine, we call our soft white, semi-sweet off dry, to balance the acidity and really bring out that fruitiness. And I call it a social sipper. That's a wine you just sit around with friends and you have a glass, and there's a second glass, and oh my God, the bottle's empty. How did that happen? I was opening another bottle. And it's like that. So and I think that the Viognier is a really nice pairing to dishes like this, and also things like fish, chicken, salads.
Sure, yeah.
Crowd pleaser.
Yeah, and Viognier, I think that a lot of sommeliers reach for Viognier, especially when they're working with pairings, because it can be such a food-friendly wine. Like you said, you've got that kind of backbone with a bit of acidity there, and then that floral characteristic. It's not too overpowering, you know, it's kind of a medium-bodied wine, and so you can kind of find some really good spots for it in your menu. It's a wine variety that not many people, or at least I don't think, as many people in, you know, in the New World think about, you know, having in their repertoire, but it's a great thing to have in the fridge because it goes with so many different dishes, certainly. Cool.
And we don't have hours and hours to talk tonight, but also the dealing with this grape, however, in the vineyard is a whole other thing. It's actually quite fickle. It's really very frustrating grape to deal with. The way like its yield moves all over the place year to year, vintage to vintage is really different. The shoots are quite fragile. Pruning is a little difficult. Like there's a lot of things about this grape. I mean, each grape has its own personality and character, and a big part of that is these, you know, several thousand bonsai trees we have in the vineyard, and each one's a little different, and each one acts differently, and they each have their own personality. It's really interesting.
Very cool. All right. Well, what do you think, Chef LC? Do you have some Viognier there in your glass? Chef, you're going to have to unmute. Chef, you're on mute. There you go.
Hello.
Hey.
Can you guys hear me? All right, yes. There we go. You asked me if I had wine in my glass. I said that I had.
Past tense.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, it was really good. So I had a bite of the salad, and I had a sip of the wine, and they're really nice together. Like so light, like very, very fruity. Like the strawberry just seems to be accentuated even more after a sip of the wine. Very well balanced. Very good choice, Louis.
Thank you.
I know. I love that we can, pair wine with dishes across Zoom here. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, they just match so well. Like very, very, very light. Just that's the only adjective I have right now. It's just super light. It's just like you want to be outside. It's summertime. It's spring. It's fresh linen. It's it's like that's the feeling that I get. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love the feeling. It's perfect.
Yeah. Really, really good choice.
All right, chef. So what are we moving on to next?
Next, we're going to do Burberry Chicken or cauliflower. Those who are not having chicken. Burberry is a spice. It's a North African spice. It has fenugreek and coriander and cumin and paprika. You could make it. You could find a recipe and make it, or you can just buy it at your local store. Most stores have it now, or you can get it from Amazon or Whole Foods. Whole Foods definitely has. But all the ingredients you could make it, but by the amount of money that it would cost to make it, you can just buy a bottle.
Right. Now, chef, of course, we've been asked to try to give specific instructions about like how much of each ingredient we're using, and so we're going to go a little slower this time.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to get another bowl. So I'm going to take my chicken breasts. So I've got 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I think these guys are probably 6 ounces apiece. I'm going to take my Burberry spice over the chicken. Rule of thumb, when you're seasoning, season high. When you're salting, salt high. That way you get a better coverage of whatever the item is that you're trying to season. When you're down this close, you're only going to get it in spots. So when you go up higher, you get more coverage.
Okay, so Salt Bae really knew what he was doing, huh?
Well, yeah. Then we're going to do some salt. And a little massage.
And now,
I've got my pan here.
Chef, those
Yes.
chicken breasts, did you take those straight out of the fridge or?
No, good question. Thank you, Leah. Cooking proteins, all proteins. Do not be afraid of letting your proteins come to room temperature. They cook so much better and so much quicker. They don't have time to be in that dangerous zone that we call the danger zone, where you have active bad bacteria things happening. It doesn't happen. You can just let your chicken, let your steaks, fish, not so much. But let your poultry and your beef products, your veal products, come to room temperature. They just cook so much. They just cook more evenly and quicker and better. So yes, these are out. They are at room temperature right now. So they're ready to go. All right. I'm going to put in to my pan. So spice and salt. That's it. Little grapeseed oil, olive oil, no oil, whatever you have. Into your pan.
Now, although you're choosing to use grapeseed oil, I know a lot of our chefs use a rice bran oil for things like this, and that's because it's super mild, right?
It's super mild, and it has a higher smoke point. So if you're, so you can go up to grapeseed is up to 500 without it burning and turning. When your oil burns, if you've had olive oil that has been raised to that height and temperature, it burns, and it's not good.
Yeah, it smells up your whole kitchen.
Yeah, it does. It's bad for you too. It actually creates carcinogens in your body. All right. I don't know if I'm still. So now I have the other side in. I'm going to season both sides. Salt. And some more of the Burberry spice.
Now, Chef, do we need to have our oven on too?
Yes. I failed to mention that. Yes, it does help. We're gonna put our oven in. Preheat your oven to 385. 400 actually. I'm using a convection oven, which is about 15 degrees higher than a regular home oven. So 400 degrees. So I've got my chicken. It is searing. Does everybody have their ovens on already? Sorry, I failed to mention that. That's very important. I'm shaking my pan a little bit just to make sure that it's not sticking. And while that's cooking, I'll start with the cauliflower steak. So I've got a cauliflower here, full guys. I'm going to lop off this side of them, pull up all the greenery here. So when you're making a cauliflower steak, the goal is to get this center guy right here attached so that the rest of the florets stay on the steak. So sometimes I cut them upside down this way. If I have confidence that day, then I'll put them down this way. Okay. So all this off, all the while watching, making sure my chicken is doing all right. All right.
And so how many?
Can you guys see that? Everybody can see that? Nice and brown, right?
About how many minutes would you say, Chef? I mean, that was maybe
on
what,
each
3,
side.
4?
That was probably 2 minutes. It's going to finish it in the oven.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And other side, same amount of time, 2 to 3 minutes. Cauliflower steak is ready, so I'm gonna. I feel pretty good for it. I'll go for it. All right, so you've got one. Now the thing with cauliflower steak, there is a bit of waste because you can't use it. Normally you get about 2 to 3 out of each one. But like I said before, you've got this guy and you've got the asparagus that we didn't use. Save them, cut these into florets, cut your asparagus into maybe little bâtonnets about this big, that's about 2 inches. A little stir fry, you didn't waste anything.
Of course, yeah. And now, Chef, when you're, so you've got the chicken breast there, what's your heat level like? Is it medium, high?
I have this on medium high.
Medium, okay.
Yes, medium high, not full blown, because we do have spices that have, anytime you're dealing with a spice that has paprika or anything red, those tend to burn quicker, or blacken quicker. That's why when you're making a blackened chicken or blackened seasoning, it tends to have a lot of paprika, so it turns black quicker. So when you're ever using paprika, smoked paprika, chili powder, all those things, you want to go a little bit lower because they will actually burn on you quicker than other spices.
Oh, that's great advice. I didn't know that.
That's what if you read the ingredients in blackened seasoning, it tends to be tons of paprika.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so these guys are seared off. They're brown. I'm going to throw them in the oven for about 10 minutes. Now, if we're not still talking in 10 minutes, I do have one to throw. All right.
Now, this is kind of a fun thing, Chef. Couldn't you also, like if you were doing a dinner party or something, you can sear those chickens off beforehand, and as long as they're not there too long in the danger zone, then you can throw them in the oven when you're close?
Exactly.
Okay.
You could even for dinner parties, I normally go all the way. Chicken breast. Sometimes, while I'm talking, I'm going to do the exact same thing for my cauliflower steak. Put a little oil on it. Salt. And some of the Burberry spice. A little rub. And I'm going to put it in the oven, same temperature. This will take about 15 minutes, your steak.
Oh, so you're not going to sear those first?
No, because, once again, we've got paprika. So it's actually going to brown in the oven. You don't need to sear it. Yeah, it'll caramelize, and the sugars from the cauliflower will come to the surface and it'll brown. You don't need to sear it. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't have to.
Why do more work than we have to?
Exactly. All right. I'm sorry, Leah, you asked me a question before I went off about it.
Oh, I was just saying, like, if you were prepping this meal for a dinner party, you know, you can do the searing of the chicken a little bit ahead, and then when you've got everything else ready, throw it in the oven.
Absolutely.
If you want to be, like, right on time. Like, after you guys get there even.
Yes. I would even go, like, chicken, they say to cook to 165. Right? That's what you guys hear. I'm sure there are other people who cook a little bit. 165 is supposed to be the spot for chicken. I do not go to 165. 165, your chicken will be absolutely dry. What you want to do, you want to go to 155. Anytime you're dealing with poultry, okay, so that's your Thanksgiving turkey that you're making. 155, because you're going to have a lot of carryover heat. Right. Normally, a small item like that, it will carry over for at least 10, it'll carry over for 10 degrees. And the amount of time it's going to take before you eat it,
right,
between
cool.
5 minutes. Yes, exactly. It'll carry over. That way your chicken is actually moist. So if you go to 165, your chicken is going to be at 175 when you eat it, or 180, and it's going to be dry. So this guy, thermometer, is one of your best friends in the kitchen, guys. Everybody go out and get one. You know what I'm saying? Just use it. Poke at you don't poke at it too many times because you'll let all the juice out and it will dry again. But, a few times, check the temperature, 155. So we're going to start with the slaw for the topping. So I've got my mandolin out again. And this time I'm going to, once again, if you don't have a mandolin for this, you could just use a box grater. If you have a box grater at home, that'll be just fine. Yeah, so a little box grater, because I'm going to julienne this, fancy for cutting into strips. Little fancy word for strip cutting. But yeah, you can use a box grater for that. I'm going to take him. I've done that. So now I've stacked up these guys. And I'm going to take my knife here, and I'm just going to go across and make what we call a fine julienne. I don't know how much you can see, but you end up with these little strips. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. All right. So that is one part of our slaw that we're going to make for the chicken. The next one is fennel. Another great spring ingredient. This is what the guy looks like. You want nice green tips, very green. If it's yellow, no yellowing here. It's nice and bright and clean. It should be a little shiny. No yellowing of the prongs here. I'm going to save this because we're going to use this in our salad. Who likes the black licorice? Anybody? Your niece?
I like fennel, but I don't know about black licorice.
Well, I don't know how many people have eaten fennel a bit, but it does have a bit of a niece or black licorice taste. So I've cut it into quarters, and what we're going to do is we're going to take out this part right here, this little stem, because this is going to be another raw ingredient. So this part tends to be very woody and chewy. Not good. Take them out. Put them here. So I'm going to just take them, lay them flat onto the board this way, my knife, and we're going to do the same thing, but without the mandolin. We're going to julienne, just running my knife back and forward. Nice and thin.
Julienne means as thin strips as you can get it without shaving it, right?
Exactly, it's strips. So you have julienne, you have fat julienne, you have fine julienne. This would be just a plain julienne.
Got it.
All right, so we're going to put him inside. Do both. One more. And we've got 20 chefs in the kitchen all julienning, it sounds like gunfire talking.
It does, yeah.
It does. Everybody's got. It's awesome. All right, so I've got my fennel slice, and we're going to do another marination here. So I've got some oil and more vinegar. So while we're doing the rest of our dish, this can be marinating and breaking down and getting flavor. Salt.
And that's the champagne vinegar again, Chef?
That is, yes, it is. Champagne vinegar, once again, a little bit of black pepper. I don't mind using, some people don't like to use black pepper when they're using ingredients that are on the lighter side. You use white pepper, but I don't mind. Same personal taste if you want to use white pepper or black pepper, whichever you prefer. Now, orange. I'm sorry, Leah?
Yeah, I was just curious. Why did we pick champagne vinegar for these dishes in particular versus other types of vinegar?
That's a good question. It's a super neutral flavor. I feel like apple cider. You can use champagne or white wine vinegar. Mm-hmm. Apple cider tends to taste a bit like apple cider. It's cool.
Right. It's
We're trying to really. I really want the flavor of the fennel and the carrots, and we're going to put some orange in here to come through. Champagne is neutral, but it tends to be. It has a little. What's the word I'm looking for? Refined.
Yeah.
Flavor.
Refined. Yeah.
Yes. Before you're going to use a white vinegar or a apple cider vinegar or any of the other vinegars. So I wouldn't use red wine, obviously, because this is a light dish, and I don't want it to turn red. But yeah, so champagne or white wine works fine. I wouldn't use regular vinegar, just regular white vinegar. It's just a little bit too harsh. Mm-hmm. So now I have. Let me get my hot going here. Orange for the slaw. So we're going to peel off. I've taken off the top and the bottom. And this is what we call supreme. We're going to supreme the orange, which basically means to section the orange, or take out sections of the orange without. That's your French word for today, supreme.
And what kind of orange are you using, Chef?
I'm using a navel orange.
Okay.
And I think it's from Florida.
Probably.
Pretty sure. All right. So you're going to take your orange, and you'll see the little white membranes going through the orange. What you want to do is take your knife and go on either side of that membrane. So you got here, and it will just drop here. Boom. So that is a supreme.
They're so
or
cute.
Section. If you want to just call it a section. All right. Yeah. Going across. Again. And your knife, you do need a sharp knife for this. But you don't have to do this. This is, again, just a little chefy thing. You can just take this orange, cut it into chunks, or just cut it into rounds this way, half moon it, whatever you want. This is, once again, just a little chefy.
That's our second French word for the day. Chefy.
Chefian.
Chefy.
Chefy.
Yeah. I'm not doing this. At home, this is not happening. It is absolutely getting cut with everything in it.
But if you're looking to impress your friends,
yeah, of course,
idea.
You know. I hope you enjoy these supreme oranges that I made for y'all.
For sure.
It actually is quite nice. You can make a salad, a fruit salad. You can do supreme oranges, nectarines, red pink grapefruit, and do like a really nice salad. Yeah, like it'll be really pretty without, and it's easier to eat too. Okay, so now I've got my oranges, and I'm going to start with getting the rest of. Wow, it's been 10 minutes? No way.
10 minutes.
Check that out.
All right. Wow, I've been yapping for 10 minutes. just going to let that rest. So now I'm going to do the accompaniment. I've got my pan heated medium-high again. And I've got beans. Now, if you're using fresh English peas, they will need to be blanched, meaning put into hot water and then plunged into ice water or cold water to set the color. I could not find any English peas up here in New York, so I am using plain old sweet peas from the frozen section. I just thawed them out, and we're going to go. This is kohlrabi, and this is what kohlrabi looks like. If I can get on this. There.
Yeah, kohlrabi is a fun thing. Yeah, check that guy out.
This is the guy right here. Yeah, he's actually a part of the mustard green family. So it is very good, and don't throw away your skin. These things are delicious. So if you find them, they taste almost like kale. Really, really good. Take them off, julienne them, saute them. Not a fan of them raw, but cooked down or wilted a little bit. They are awesome. So what I did was I peeled them up for time purposes and just gently boiled them for about 8 minutes, just to tenderize them a little bit.
Oh, okay. Right? So that's more than a blanch, right?
No, the blanch is just for the peas. The blanch is like plunge in 30 seconds, take it out, put it into cold water. 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And these were actually boiled so that they would be tender and ready to be cooked. So they are in a small dice and ready to go. If you can't find, I believe today Amy said someone couldn't find kohlrabi, you can use potato or turnip, any kind of root vegetable. Yeah, it all works the same. All right.
Now, Chef, when you're blanching, or let's say when you boiled that kohlrabi, are you salting your water like a pasta water?
Always. Yes, absolutely. You always want to salt boiling water, water that you're seasoning something in. Always. Number one, especially green things, it actually helps the color stay. It actually makes it greener. I don't know why. Don't ask me. But it does make it greener, and of course you're going to get all the flavor from that.
Got it.
All right, my pan is heating up here. I've got my kohlrabi. I've got my.
It's because of the pH.
Wait, Lewis knows. Wait, Lewis knows.
Seriously?
He's coming in with some science. What do we know, Lewis?
It's because of the pH.
It raises the pH. That makes sense.
It's basic. It's extremely basic, and it accentuates the color.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Look at that.
I learned the more you know.
It also raises the boiling temperature of the water.
Yes, it does. That's true. I did know that. All right. So now I've got some oil in my pot, medium heat. I'm going to toss my kohlrabi in there. All right, add a little bit of salt. Check my cauliflower steak. So this guy, I cooked him so you can see actually he's nice and crispy and brown on the other side without putting him in a pan. See that? Flip him over.
Oh, those look great.
So, Chef, we have another question from Christy. Christy's asking us, why do you salt water for things other than greens? If Lewis said the greens were because of the pH level, like why do we salt water for pasta?
It's because flavor. Your flavoring is also going flavor. Inside. Yes, flavor. If you don't salt pasta, you can't get it to go inside the product. It'll just be on the outside. So when you're doing, it's like if you don't salt it, you don't give it the pasta a chance to absorb. It's absorbing water. It's absorbing flavor. It's absorbing the salt. So if you don't salt it, it's like with a potato or anything that you're using salted water for. It's to get the flavor in immediately. That's for vegetables. anything. That's what it is. It's salted for you. If not, it'll
Right,
just be on the outside.
Yeah, because I've always wondered that too, like when you're making soup or when you're making pasta sauce or something, like why salt the onions and the carrots, you know, when you're just going to salt it later, but it's because you have to build that flavor from the bottom up.
Exactly. It's taking it inside the product. You know, other than that, it'll just be literally on the outside. So if I took my salt right now and I just put it on the table, there's your salt. So you get it on your initial bite, but then as you begin to chew it, you're not getting any more flavor because there's none there. You didn't get a chance to get it.
Huh.
So now my kohlrabi is sizzling up a little bit there. I'm going to add some butter. Those people who are not, once again, having butter, whatever your earth balance or coconut oil, you can use that as well. Throw in a few dollops. So this is probably, I'm going to throw in a tablespoon of butter. Let that melt. In chefs, we call that mounting with butter, when you add butter to the end of something. And then I'm going to put in my peas. And that is probably about a quarter cup of peas, I guess. Down. All right. That's going to cook down a little bit. Check my chicken. All right. Now, here's the trick. You know, people say that you see chefs touching the protein all the time. I don't know if you guys have seen people do this. You put your thumb and index finger together, and you feel this part of your hand here. See how soft that is? So you got here, that would be like medium, and the tighter you get it, so you put more tension on it, that's well done. So if you just place it together, you feel that, that's what you don't want. So you just put a little tension. All right, so that's about medium, a little more tension, well done. Little trick. So this guy is,
good trick.
It's nice. I feel that it's good. Right. Or, of course, you can use your thermometer, 155.
There we go.
Okay. All right. I realized I got some of this delicious wine here.
Yeah.
They say cook with what you drink with. Okay? So we're going to put in about, let's say, 2 tablespoons of wine. This was not in the initial recipe. I was like, it's good. It's going to be delicious. So about 2 splashes of wine. All right?
And you got to do a little bit of improv when you're cooking.
Exactly. That's going to add a little bit of acidity, a little bit of sweetness. And I've got some scallions here. Cut these guys nice and thin. And that is going to go into that pot, and I'm going to put a few inside the slaw as well. Okay.
Now you're just using the green parts, right?
I am just using the green part for color, and because it's just a little bit milder in flavor than the white part. And I am not a huge onion fan. I know people say you're a chef, you don't like onions. I really don't. I just never grew up liking them. I like them cooked or in something in a stew. When it comes to bringing whatever dish it is more flavor, you're not going to catch me eating like raw onions in my tuna fish salad or my potato salad. It's not going to happen. But I do like spring onions and scallions. All right, so now that's actually reducing a little bit. It's thickening up. You're beginning to get like a little sauce here. That's what we want, a little brockiness. I'm going to put a little bit of our onions inside here. I'm going to taste it for seasoning.
And you're looking to see when that kohlrabi is kind of tender, right?
The kohlrabi is actually tender because I gently boiled it first. So I'm just trying to heat it through and just have everything become one dish now. You don't want to overcook it. You don't want a mushy. You want it to have some body, some crunch. So you don't want to go too far. So that was probably, I guess we cooked it. I was talking for 10 minutes while the chicken was done. So that was probably like another like 4 minutes. So I think we were there. Scott, you can, if I had a spatula, I would slide this down and you would see that there's like a little sauce has built on the bottom from the butter and the wine, and the water just released from the kohlrabi and the peas.
Right, and so those green onion tips, the scallion tips that you put in, you just put those kind of in at the end, right? You don't want to put them in too early?
Yeah, I don't want them, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they do go in with the other vegetables.
Yes. I'm taking some of the fennel prongs, and that's going to be another additional garnish. Get a bowl here. All right, so I've got my plate. And I also have some crushed red pepper. And I'm going to put literally a pinch right at the end. And that is just going to just liven the whole thing up. If you don't like chili, you can omit it. It also gives it some little specks of color.
Yeah.
All right, so my kohlrabi.
Or chef, if people don't like spicy, like how red chili flakes are spicy, could they find like another mild pepper, like an Aleppo pepper or something that doesn't have quite the same spice?
Yes, Aleppo is a little bit sweeter. It's still spicy, but not as much. Or just omit it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I've got my veg down. I'm going to go in there for some of that broth. Okay. Now, this, you can have artistic freedom. If you want to slice your chicken, you can do that. It does make for a nicer presentation. If you're more rustic and you just want to get her done, you can just put it right on top. Look how slices today. We can they're nice thin slices.
And now, Chef, do you want to talk about, how long we should wait before we slice that protein before it goes on the plate? Because
another
it should
good
rest
question,
a
Leah.
little bit, right?
It absolutely should, yeah. So it will stay warm. You can tent it if you like with foil for about 5 minutes. I would say in 5 minutes, it should be ready to go. You don't want to do it right. If I cut into the chicken right, I'm sure you guys have been watching Food Network. And you hear those chefs going, if you cut right into it, literally you just let all of the juice out of the chicken. It needs to have a chance to sit and let the juice redistribute into the chicken. Put that guy on top. I think my earpiece is coming. And I've got my slaw. Nice, bright, crispy. I didn't put any oil, so I'm going to put a little bit of oil now. That was just vinegar. Now I've got oil, so now I've got a real slaw here. And I'm going to put this right on top of the chicken.
Yum.
Okay. And I'm going to take my orange, put them right on top. I'm going to put 5 pieces. So normally, you always plate things in odd numbers. 3, if you've noticed, you'll go to a restaurant, you'll get 3 fritters or 5 fritters. You'll never get 2 or 4. Always odd numbers, little chef thing. And then I'll take the fennel prawns and put those guys right on top. And there you have it, folks.
And then those are the green tops from the fennel, right?
Yes, from the fennel. Yes, they have tons of flavor. Unfortunately, they don't last for very long. So if you take them off, they will turn brown. So it's best to use them right now, or keep them in some ice cold water. They'll last a little bit longer.
Like your other herbs. Cool,
yeah,
look at that.
like my radish. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can. It looks great.
Awesome. There you go, guys. Burberry chicken with kohlrabi and peas, and fennel slaw with orange.
Very cool, chef. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, guys.
We've got chicken, so we have to have something to drink with this. Louis, what's next?
Next is a wine called Dornfelder. This is a German grape, and if it's it's a little puzzling to think of French and Italian and German grapes, growing in the foothills of North Carolina, but the aspects of this region that define it. The document, again, I mentioned that the federal approval was issued in 2003, and the document is this thick, but to boil it down into bullet points, but we're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge and Brushy Mountains leading up to the Smoky Mountains. And these Appalachian Mountains, they're some of the oldest mountain range on Earth. They were formed at the same time as the Pyrenees and the Himalayas during Pangea. And so the soil that we have here is a sandy loam, a sandy clay with granite, mica, schist. And it's very similar to what the ancient Romans called terra rossa, which they were referring to this area in the Northwest. We call it Tuscany. And that term has followed through wine world to define that type of soil, which is recognized in places like the Right Bank Bordeaux and Coonawarra, Australia, in Spain and Argentina, parts of and the Yadkin Valley, North Carolina. But our latitude is further south than Tuscany. We're at 36 degrees, 16 minutes latitude, which lines up with the southern tip of Sicily and crosses southern Spain and Portugal, right across Malaga, Spain. And then for West Coast reference in North America, our little region here, 36 degrees latitude, lines up exactly with Monterey County. So we're actually central coast for sun exposure for California terms, but our climate, temperature, humidity average is most similar of all to Bordeaux. And our vineyard management practices in the region are modeled actually after Bordeaux. So these vines don't know they're in North Carolina. Their feet are in Italy and they're growing in France. And we don't tell them. It's a secret. They don't need to know that. But so this German grape was grown. Actually, we don't grow it at our vineyard. We source from a couple of other vineyards in the region that are nearby us that we have long established relationships with over years since before we arrived. There's one grower I'd still buy from that the previous owner who started the vineyard had been buying from as well. And we've established other regular, I call them partnerships, because I work with these growers. I walk their vineyards with them. I make the harvest decision. I'm taking samples of their grapes and doing analysis in my winery, and watching their phenolic ripeness over the late season. So this Dornfelder grape is grown at a neighbor nearby that we also get our Chardonnay from, in fact. And Dornfelder grape is really interesting. I had never tasted any grape quite like it. He had started growing it. We're the only winery in the region, I think, in North Carolina that's making a Dornfelder wine. And he had planted it as a bit of an experiment. And I've never tasted quite this character in a wine before. It's really, the grape itself is not super tannic and not particularly aggressive with the acidity, but it has a lot of dark, like stewed fruits that come through, loganberry, blackberries, and it can be a bit jammy, but also that beautiful deep inky color, which is not known for from a German red. And that was actually the purpose of the cultivation of this grape. It's a hybrid of other more well-known red German grapes, like Blaufränkisch is one of its distant parents, which is also called Lemberger, Helfensteiner, Harald-Drebe. And so Dornfelder has quietly become the second most planted red grape in Germany, second only to Spätburgunder, which is their number one famous red grape, which is actually just Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
They call it Spätburgunder. which means late ripening. And so the flavor profile of this grape that I found so interesting was that it was more herbal, not herbaceous in a green, underripe way, but herbal, more like baking spices, savory baking spices like cinnamon, thyme, and almost like a eucalyptus cooling sensation on the finish. And sage, I also get some sage sometimes from this wine. So I think this particular wine, paired with things like the anisette from the fennel and the Burberry spice, really speaks to a lot of those kind of like, especially like poultry seasoning. You had this wine with turkey or lamb or pork, roasted pork, those kind of like lighter meats. It would hold up to beef as well, but we also make a Cabernet and I make a Bordeaux blend, would be better for the beef.
Right.
But this one, I think with the chicken, especially with the spices and the savory herbal character of the root vegetable and the fennel, I think would really pick up some of the characteristics of this Dornfelder grape. It's actually named for a guy named Dornfeld, who was basically the creator of the premier original viticulture school in Germany. And his name is Dornfeld. He passed away in the 1700s, but they named this grape in his honor. And but it's so there's a few different versions of this wine they make as a traditional style in Germany. One is just a completely dry, austere, oak-aged red. The more common version, like this, is called Halbtrocken, which is just off-dry. Halbtrocken translates to half-dry. So it just has a little bit of residual sugar left from the fermentation, from the juice of the grape itself, and it brings out a bit of the fruit character on the front end to balance some of the structure and the savory herbal notes. And then they also, lastly, make a sweet red, but it's very obscure and most of it's exported, and they don't drink it.
Right.
And but so this Halbtrocken version has been extremely popular for us, and I thought it would pair really well with that particular dish.
Yeah, I think it's really fun because I don't think I'd ever had this grape variety before. But when we're, for the rest of us who are listening, like, because I haven't had this grape variety before, what would you, are there other varieties that you would tell people to help explain it to their friends? Like when they're getting ready to open a bottle, like, what is this like? What's it going to be like? What do you compare it to?
I would compare it to a Pacific Northwest Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
So as opposed to a red Burgundy or French style Pinot Noir, that's more earthy and structured and more acid driven, where the Pacific Northwest, they get quite a bit riper, somewhere like further south toward the valley, not in the valley, of course, wouldn't hold up, but that it gets a bit more ripe and luscious and jammy. And this one I'd consider more in that fruit forward style of Pinot Noir, particularly because it does not have a distinct powerful acidity or tannin to it. Like even the finish to it, it has a bit of tannin structure because I age all our reds in French oak. And so all our reds go into French oak barrels for at least a year, all of our reds. And so it does have a bit of structure from that, and also the process of the microoxygenation of aging in oak like that. They call it the organoleptic properties of the wine opening over that time. And so it's much more approachable. It's drinkable young, this is 2017 vintage. And so I would describe it more like that style of the Northwestern Pinot that's quite a bit fruit forward, but not acidic or tannic necessarily. It's just really easy drinking, but plump and really easy drinking, very quaffable.
Yeah, it's definitely quaffable. And I was interested, what I found interesting about it was that, like, the body of it makes you want to think, similar to a Pinot Noir because it's a little bit lighter, right, in body. But then, like you were mentioning, those kind of darker fruits, those blackberry flavors, a little bit more stewed fruit versus that cherry kind of flavor that you normally get out of a Pinot Noir. So I even thought it would be fun for people who, might like a Malbec, but we're interested in something a little bit lighter. This might also be, something that they might enjoy.
Yeah, or Meritage Bordeaux blends, something with that's Merlot driven, like a right bank Bordeaux. The Merlot, particularly on our soil, gets a lot of black cherry and plum. character, and I could go in that direction with this wine too, more of a black cherry, darker red fruits. Yeah, it's an anomaly though. It's definitely its own animal. I've never tasted this flavor quite like it in a wine. It's really fun, and it's pretty cool to be the only one in the valley who makes Dornfelder.
Yeah, that's true.
So far. Yeah, so far, other people are already planting it. They're trying to.
Oh, really?
Because the grape, conversely to what we were talking about with the Viognier grape, this grape is actually quite robust. It's really easy to manage in the vineyard. It's a prolific producer. However, it's a early grape, so it buds early, which exposes us to late season frost, which can be a problem. And then it actually harvests quite a bit early. We usually harvest. This is the first red grape that we bring in, and we're usually harvesting this grape about the time that we're still bringing in some of the whites, some of the earliest grapes, and that red, they become quite fragile if they get overripe. They'll just the clusters will start to disintegrate, and so we harvest this on the early side as well, but not as a stylistic choice, but because they're ready. It's just an early grape, and but there's no sacrifice of color from that.
Yeah, which is great.
The skin. Definitely, even without macerating enzyme, like other kinds of things we can do in the winery to help the extraction from that, because as many people might know, the red grapes, with the exception of just a handful that actually have a natural color to their juice, we call tintier. Most of the red grapes, like even Cabernet Sauvignon, you first bring that cluster and you go and squish it, the juice that comes out is completely clear, and a lot of the color, all of the color and much of the flavor in the wines come from the skin, and then further tannin is contributed from the seeds as well, and a little bit of stem inclusion if we choose to do that with some of the wines. And this one is just a kind of easy grape to deal with in the vineyard, and if it's taken care of properly in the vineyard, easy grape to deal with in the winery.
Yeah, and it seems like a great style of red to drink in the springtime too, when you're not, you don't want something that's too heavy, that's too overpowering. That you got to open hours beforehand, that kind of stuff. So I think it really also plays well into kind of the theme of Chef's Menu, which is it's springtime, let's use what we've got, and also finding that style of wine that works both with the cuisine as well as just the, the atmosphere.
Yeah, like when people, borrow a reference, so they call it like backyard red or barbecue red,
right?
Something light, and you have it with you're grilling out, and you have a white wine or a red wine in the backyard at your socially distanced gathering in the backyard, and it's definitely in that style.
Yeah, and you said having this kind of wine that works really well with the spices too, because if you think about grilling, barbecuing, you got all kinds of spices going on in there usually when you're doing those kinds of meats. So this is a perfect grilling wine for sure. And
that blackened flavor, the char. From the heat, from the high heat. Yeah, it's great with that.
Very cool. So Chef, what do you think about the red? How's it going with the chicken? Chef, you got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, a lot of times too, with
okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
We want to know what you think.
Okay. No, this wine is good. I've never had it before, and I kept tasting. You said smoky at the end, and I was tasting, and I was like, there's an earthy metallic flavor that I'm getting that goes really well with the Burberry spice. Because a lot of those spices they're warming spices like cinnamon, cumin, coriander, which traditionally would be fall flavors. But with the addition of the fenugreek, it lightens it up. And there's something. It's like a Pinot had a baby with a Malbec.
Yeah, I was
I love Malbec. That's like my favorite
what
wine.
Lewis was saying about the Merlot too, though. It definitely does have kind of a softness that a Merlot would have too, like you were mentioning, with kind of a lower acidity. So I feel both those comparisons.
I like that little interesting earthy metallic flavor that hits you at the end.
I find it as a bit of a cooling sensation I keep in certain vintages, not necessarily this one. In certain vintages, I really pick up a lot of eucalyptus almost, and like eucalyptus leaves, and on the finish, where it just kind of like it trails off in that way, but not in a heavy tannic way, more in a light kind of like cooling, like a peppermint patty commercial.
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
what do you think of the wines?
Awesome.
Awfully quiet over there.
He's drinking.
He's too busy drinking, right? That must be a good sign then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm unmuted. No, I've been drinking through the whole program. It's been awesome. Yeah, I think the whole, between LC's dishes and Lewis's wine, I mean, I think that this was a fantastic combination. And we're just after 7:30. I think we had hoped to do about an hour and a half, and I think that the timing worked out beautifully. And I don't know, guys. I mean, I guess you're welcome to hang out. I mean, typically what we've done at the end of these programs is let people stay on and chat if they would like to. But it's my job just to thank you guys for cooking along with LC and drinking along with Lewis. I've done plenty of that. And of course, Leah, you did a wonderful job of keeping the program moving along beautifully, and we really appreciate that. The 2 words for the night, by the way, are chefy and quaffable. So make sure you remember that and use those in your social media. Quaffably chefy or something. I mean, I think that those are the 2 words that are sticking with me, which are awesome.
Hashtag quaffable.
Absolutely. So just Alumni Foundation, we're here to bring everybody together. Your donations are welcome. You can do that through our link on the website. And that's pretty much it. We're grateful for all the participation. This is an awesome event. And special thanks to Amy and David for getting this all together. And that's it for me. I've got my grandsons waiting. They're kind of like banging on the door. So I'm going to like go out and see them. But that's it. No, thank you guys very much. This was awesome.
I'll see what I'm talking.
So you have to make sure you have an odd number of olives in your picadillo.
I put exactly 17, so it's okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Awesome.
Cool. Now I'm jealous.
Thank
now
you.
I'm picadillo too. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions for Chef or Lewis?
Thank you guys for doing this. This was amazing. I'm just curious. This is more just an artistic question. What, for all of you, what was the turning point, or as an artist, what made you kind of go towards cooking, wine, service, at the barn? So for all 3 of you, I'm just curious how that journey took you when you kind of pivoted from, I guess you all were theater, so pivoted from theater into this cooking, wine, and service industry.
We we talked a bit about this at a preliminary conversation before, and I was saying I think from my perspective there's a certain perspective from which, as an artist, that you approach anything that you do, any endeavor, any project, any challenge that you're going to meet. And I've found that through, even back at New World, was taking disparate elements of different things and kind of putting them together in different ways, and then continuing on through other things that I did, including with Blue Man and here with the wines and with cooking. I mean, it's just anything that you have. You're presented with a color palette, and then you're going to choose from the color palette to create something new, but created out of things that already existed in your environment. And so I think that it's just, I'll let Chef and Leah talk, from their point of view as well, but that I think it's just the way in which I approach really anything that I do is sort of from a artistic eye of just like, what would be interesting here? Like, what would be a really kind of unique and fun and interesting approach that would engage people? I'll pass on to them.
Well, for me, I had always been working in the industry because you're an actor in New York City, you're going to work in a restaurant. You know, you're an actor, what restaurant do you work in? So I have been doing it for a while, and I was bartending later. I started as a server, and I just bartending, doing all these huge parties and working in all these restaurants, and just always having a love for food. I've always had a love for food, and I tell myself I should have gone to culinary school like years ago, but I really love acting, and I love what it did for me. You know, it got me to a point in my life, a place in my life that I don't think I would have been able to get to without, if I hadn't had that. I probably would still be doing something or being in a place that I did not want to be in. So for me, I just followed my dream. I got tired of drunk people. And I wanted to do something that I actually liked. So I said, you know what, I've always loved this. Can I see myself doing this for 20, 30 years? Yes. Check box. And here I am. And I don't have any regrets.
Yeah, that's cool. I think, you know, what's different than Lewis and LC, who might even be more considered back of house as far as food and beverage goes, whereas my concentration is usually more front of house. You know, I totally understand that craft quality that Lewis is really talking about, that way that you approach things, you know, looking for the best way to do something, a different way to do something, and kind of having that artist mindset. But for me, it was even easier or more simple, which is the thing that I loved about theater always was that the teamwork and the building off of other people and the production element of it. You know, like you can't do the show without the stage manager. Of course, at New World, you know, when you had Dorset Noble and those guys, they were like, you have to build the stage before you can get on it, you know. And having respect for all those different layers, you know, all those things that go into making a theater production. And it's almost exactly the same in a restaurant. I mean, you can't run your restaurant without your dishwashing staff. You know, the chefs need the servers. They can't get the food to the tables without them. You need your bartenders. You need your sommeliers, you know, who can enrich and tell stories. And just the relationships also that you make, kind of what Lewis was talking about with some of his the other vineyards that he works with to get grapes from, kind of as a negotiant, if you will. The same thing with us, with our farmers, you know, and then it goes even deeper. You know, at Blackberry Farm, we have our own garden. And so the gardeners are always saying like, hey, what should we plant? When should we harvest this? Like, what are you guys doing? What, you know, and so it just all, and then, you know, we use the cheese that we make at the larder from the sheep that are on the farm. I mean, the more integration and the relationships that you're building, and the understanding of, you know, what it takes to get to that final product when you're in dinner service and it's live and you're busy and you're sweating and, you know, and the people are maybe a little drunker than they should be sometimes.
It is theater.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yes.
And it's always different, and it's really exciting to be in service. You know, you get that same adrenaline that you do going out on stage too, even in the kitchen, for sure, in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's funny what you just said. We do a lot of weddings and events here. We have a wedding venue, and there's if anybody had a chance to look at the website, and there's like running water and a waterfall and like a water feature behind us, and it's a beautiful property. And so we do these weddings, and there's I have kind of a go-to running joke where I'm just like, it's show business, like, you know, we give each other like, you know, the kind of old school Blue Man, you know, kind of high fives and stuff, like have a good show, you know, before you get started, you know, 5 minutes till call and 10 minutes till second sign, and like all these things we used to do at Blue Man. And but that it is very much still show business. Like we're still in that we're entertaining people. It is theater. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's true. I agree.
Absolutely. Especially in the restaurant. In the restaurant, I do catering now, so it is absolutely like taking a show on the road at every turn. You know, it's the same energy. Like Leah said, it's the same camaraderie. Everybody, you know, we've got to get this done. And there have been times where I really, really did think that we would get this thing done. You know, it's like, oh man, you know, right at the last minute, the lights are done, or right at the last minute, my costume is ready, or right at the, you know, I didn't get a chance, I missed my fitting, or whatever. It's the same energy, it's the same feeling as theater. And it actually helps to have that kind of a background for me personally, because I don't get easily knocked off center from things, because I'm just so used to, you know, things coming at me either way from theater. You know, I'll be a person, or this thing goes wrong, or this thing goes wrong. So you have a hyper awareness of things, and yeah, so it is theater for sure.
The show must go on.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I don't know if you have this problem, Louis, but in the Smoky Mountains, the power likes to go out a lot. So when you're getting ready to do, you know, 150 covers in a restaurant, the POS and the lights don't work, you find candles.
Yep.
Show must go on.
Yes, it does.
Handwrite menus.
Handwrite tickets too.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that answered your question, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you. I love hearing that, and I love hearing how you know, the arts or theater. I was a dancer, but I'm always telling students I teach that no matter if you're a dancer or you don't, you know, even if you don't want to become a professional dancer, this is going to teach you so many skills as you move through any part of life, no matter what you're going to be. So this is just a great example. But I love the passion all of you showed tonight with everything you do. It's really inspiring.
No, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't trade, you know, any kind of theater or arts training for anything. It's come in handy in more ways than I can even count.
Exactly.
Thank you guys so much. This was unbelievable. Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy, for getting us all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, Louis, I'll have to come see you in North Carolina. It's not too far.
Please do. Not too far. My parents, actually, my mom's on here, live just right near the North Carolina border, heading toward Tennessee. We could drive to Pigeon Forge. And so we're, you know, I have excuses to go out there. I actually try to get to Asheville as often as I can. I love
Asheville's
Asheville.
great. Yeah,
but
it's pretty close too.
I need to get into Tennessee and explore for sure.